All democracies choose their elected officials by direct vote of the public. The United States is unique, however, among democracies in letting its people be the primary choosers of the nominees of all major parties for all major elected offices. One of these is the President of the United States. The presidential election may end on inaugural day in a brilliant display of grandeur in Washington, D.C., but it begins in early February in the snows of Iowa. Ordinary people begin the process of deciding who they want to support for the presidential nominees of our two major parties, the Republican nominee and the Democratic nominee. It was my good fortune to be able to participate as an observer in the Iowa Caucuses and to begin to watch the selection of the next president of the United States. The presidential nomination system, as I had just mentioned, is a direct selection of not the president, but it's of the delegates to attend the national convention from each of the 50 states. Therefore, there are 100 different ways in which delegates are selected to attend the national conventions. All of those 100 for each party and each state begin with the votes of the public in one way or another. We have two methods, caucuses and primaries. Primaries in states like New Hampshire involve people going to polls just like they do in the fall in the general election and casting their votes. Our actual process for selecting the nominees, however, begins in the state of Iowa using the caucus method. A caucus means just that the people who are interested and eligible voters in their precinct go to a meeting and select their choice for who they would like to be president. State parties then select delegates to attend the national convention in support of those candidates. This year, on February 1st, Iowans from around the state gathered in high schools, gymnasiums, and libraries and so forth, and sometimes in the smaller precincts, even in individual people's homes, to begin this process. This is actually the end of the beginning, because for months we have watched the presidential contenders compete for support throughout the country, both for money and then for votes and people to participate in the caucuses. These delegate selection procedures, as I said, are different between every given state. So Iowa is different from all the other states and how they actually work it. But then so too are the Republicans and the Democrats parties different in how they work, even in Iowa. I was able to observe two different Republican caucuses and two different Democratic caucuses and see how it was that they chose these people. The Republicans provide a sort of classic illustration of precinct parties at work. Lots of people showed up, they sign in, they sit down in one room or another. The candidates are supported by different members in the precinct. One of the supporters of each candidate, of a Donald Trump, a Ted Cruz, gets up and presents the case for why they, a neighbor of all these other people, think that they and their neighbors should support a Donald Trump or a Ted Cruz or whoever it is, a Marco Rubio. The Republicans then are handed out ballots. They write down the name they want, put it in an envelope. The votes are then counted. Most of the people at the caucuses then leave, but what's left are the hardworking individuals who make the Republican Party run in that precinct for the rest of the year. On the Democratic side, it works slightly differently. The people gather. In the case of one of the precincts caucuses that I attended, 900 people from that precinct came. It took hours for them to sign everybody in. The people gathered in groups. counted each other up as to who was supporting Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders and candidate O'Malley. It turned out that O'Malley supporters didn't have enough individuals to qualify for a delegate. They're entered in a process of ordinary people actually negotiating over what they should do now. They had three choices. They could go support Sanders people, they could go support the Clinton people, or they could go home and support nobody. And in the case of one of the caucuses that I observed, they chose to support Sanders. In the other case, some of them ended up supporting Clinton, and most of them went home without supporting anyone. In any event, the end of the day, by 9 o'clock on a cold Iowa February 1st, all these neighbors had organized together and decided who they would support for president, with the winners going on to contest in the next state, which is New Hampshire primary. Some of the losers, seeing that they didn't have support of even enough Iowans, ended up dropping out of the race entirely. And thus the beginning of the selection of our presidential candidates began in ordinary people's homes and in ordinary people's local schools systems, as they simply met to begin the process themselves, not the fat cats supporting the big money, not the candidates themselves, but just ordinary voters going and doing their ordinary politicking.